Hello, I'm your host Jim McLean. Welcome back to another episode of the Banterflix movie review show here on NVTV. Let's see what movies we'll be looking at tonight. We'll be reviewing Alison Millar's documentary Lyra, which is out in cinemas now. Our pick of the streams is Zola, which is available to watch on Now TV. And we'll wrap up with our DVD of the week, Jordan Peele's Nope. So that's what we've lined up for you this week, and joining me in the studio here this evening is Gerard Mc Neil, photographer and film enthusiast.
How's it going? Thank you for having me.
Not a problem, great to have you on the show for the first time, Gerard, so we look forward to talking about that. And we have lit to the tits, Claire McCullough.
Hi, how are you?
Gives me an excuse to say a bad word on primetime TV, but let's say nothing more about that, Claire. Right, let's kick things off and let's start with a bit of movie news. So guys, movie news, what's caught our attention this week? I'll start with you, Gerard.
Netflix have announced that they are going to be making a live-action Gears of War movie, and they're going to be making an adult animated series on Gears of War as well. So I'll be very interested to see where that's going, given the track record of video game adaptations to movies. They haven't been great recently, so I'll be watching that one with great anticipation.
Yeah, they haven't been great. I can't really think of any that have been outstanding. Probably Wreck-It Ralph, which is a fictional video game, is probably my favourite. Although I have dabbled with the Halo TV series on Paramount Plus. I don't think it's amazing by any levels, but I think it's a pretty solid series. So I think going down a similar route to that, or doing something in a similar vein to that with Gears of War, you know, are you a video game fan, Gerard?
Big video game nerd.
So what would be for you the notable video game movies you would be looking out for? I'm going to expect Super Mario Brothers is going to be high on that list.
Yes, but also Chris Pratt as the voice of Mario. There's obviously been a lot of uproar on that. A lot of people actually wanted the original Mario voice actor. I can't remember the person's name. But at the same time, I am looking forward to it. Also, Jack Black as Bowser. It's going to be an interesting one. And just on that as well, we also have The Last of Us TV series is just around the corner. I think HBO in February is coming out. So I'll be looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah, you didn't even mention Bob Hoskins, but let's not go down there. Claire, what about you? What's caught your attention?
So I saw that it has been teased that the new Willy Wonka film, which is like based on Willy Wonka's early childhood, is going to be a musical. And I'm really excited about that. I would really like to see Timothée Chalamet doing a few musical soundtracks.
I don't know if I'm going to let myself get excited about this, because didn't everything that really needed to be said about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, didn't it get said in not just Tim Burton's film, but the original film? You know, Gene Wilder, I absolutely adore in that role. I don't know, I mean, we were talking just before we started to record, you know, you're excited about the Matilda musical that's going to be released in a couple of weeks. So clearly, is it the actor that's drawn you to this? Is it the fact that it's a musical? I mean, are you a fan of that genre, Claire?
I love musicals, like really, really, really enjoy musicals, and I like a good one as well. And I just think recently the musicals that have came out are exceptional. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm also looking forward to the Matilda one.
Look, the original Danny DeVito directed movie holds a special place in my heart. I think it's get out of jail card for this new version is that it's based on the stage play rather than the novel. I don't know. I'm not excited about it, but then those are the films that take you by surprise. Gerard, I don't know, before we move on, are you a fan of musicals? Are you excited about the thought of a Willy Wonka musical hitting our screens?
I can't say that I am. No. Like musicals, I wasn't a fan of them when I was a kid. They were not my scene. But as years have gone by and I've got older, I can learn to appreciate them, but it's not something I'll be running to the cinema to see when it comes out.
Okay, well look, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, for me, before we move on, the bit of movie news that caught my attention just before we started to record was the sad news that Leslie Phillips has passed away at the age of 98. He passed away in his sleep earlier this week. And I mean, he's known for his catchphrases, that delivery that he had on the Carry On movies, but we also know him from the voice of the Sorting Hat and the Harry Potter movies. I'm sure there's quite a few people who know that voice as distinctive as that. But also, and I'm going to come back to you, Claire, because I know from one of the last times we had you on the show, you were very excited about the second Knives Out movie. Rian Johnson has already said now he's ready now to start working on the third installment in that series. So clearly, you know, we're talking about you being excited about musicals. You're excited about the next Knives Out movie.
Yes, I'm so excited for it, like ridiculously excited for it. The only thing that I think I said this to you last time I was on the show was that it's going to be on Netflix instead of the cinema. And I really feel like the cinematic experience of Knives Out really helps make it. But surely they'll be showing it somewhere, hopefully.
Well,
Maybe at the Strand.
You will be delighted to know that it is getting released in the cinema. It's going to get a limited run. I believe it's for a week before it's released on Netflix. So if you want to get that full cinematic experience of Benoit Blanc and that distinctive southern drawl, you will be able to see it on the big screen. Gerard, were you a fan of the first Knives Out film? Excited by the fact that Netflix have paid a lot of money to get not just one installment in the series, but two. We will get a Knives Out 3. It will happen.
I've never actually watched the first one. And Claire has always been on to me about watching it. I just haven't got round to watching it. Although, I'd saying that, absolutely adore Chris Evans, absolutely adore Daniel Craig. Ana de Armas, stolen my heart. Absolutely love her. But it's not something that I've got round to watching yet. But I think I'll be watching it this weekend after the scolding that I've just got from the both of you.
I think Claire's scolding eye says it all. I mean, I would definitely agree you should sit down and watch Knives Out because it's just an absolute blast of a cinematic experience. And you mentioned Chris Evans, who this week was voted the sexiest man. And, you know, unfortunately, they overlooked myself, but I'll happily kind of tip my hat to Chris Evans. But with that, let's move on and get stuck into our first movie review.
Lyra was certain that 35 years of conflict had an effect on this society.
Our young people have been left behind.
I am the most annoyingly curious person I know.
She would become what she wrote about.
Brick walls aren't there to keep you out. They're there to see how badly you want it.
It has to change. That's what Lyra was writing about. And now we have to do that for her.
I think it's better to go down fighting.
So that's a look at the documentary Lyra. It's out in cinemas now. It was screened at the Belfast Film Festival. I unfortunately missed that event with the director present. I got a chance to see that at the lovely Eclipse Cinema in Lifford. We're going to come to you first, Claire. I mean, there's a documentary about the journalist Lyra McKee. She was killed in 2019. There's a lot to talk about within this documentary. There's a lot to unpack. It's a documentary that looks at not only her work and her influence within the local community, but also on kind of a general reflection on the peace process as we approach the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. What did you think?
It was absolutely incredible. Very difficult to watch and very raw. There was so much grief inside the film, but I feel like it was done with such sensitivity, you know, with the family present, with her partner present. It was a masterpiece, really. I found it really difficult to watch at parts. I did find it really upsetting, but I just thought she was just amazing. Like, she was just such an amazing person. The innocence of her and the passion and everything that she did for the community and journalism is absolutely incredible. And she was just the sweetest soul, and it made me angry as well, because that should never have happened.
Yeah, it goes without saying, it's a documentary that will be a difficult watch. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of people, particularly here, who would have known Lyra, would have found it a very upsetting film to sit down and sit through. Like you, I think the documentarian Alison Millar, she's done an absolutely fantastic job in getting people to open up, and in some cases, these are people that are opening up within about 3-4 weeks of her death, and I think that is a very difficult thing to do, having lost my father last year, the thought of talking, and in very different circumstances, but having been in a position to kind of talk so openly about these things less than 3 weeks after my own father passed would have been impossible for me. And in that type of situation, I just have absolute praise for Alison on the project. It's what I love about it is the simple fact that, as I kind of said in my kind of rambly attempt to kind of explain what the documentary is all about, is that it tries to balance so many things. It's looking at Northern Ireland, where we've come from, where we are now. It's looking at kind of the suicide epidemic that is still such a massive problem in not just Belfast. I mean, the documentary focuses particularly on Ardóin, but in Northern Ireland generally. But it also looks at not only Lyra's career, but also just the power of investigative journalism. There's so many things that it tries to do. If I sat maybe critically, took a step back, I would maybe like it to explore more on this and that, but it's an hour and a half long. I know that it's going to be screened on Channel 4 at some point, possibly next year, not this year. I would recommend anyone seek it out. There's a few other documentaries in a moment or two. I would suggest that people watch this for further reading, as I usually kind of said, or further viewing tips. But enough of me. Gerard, what about you?
I have to echo the sentiments of both of you. It was a difficult watch, and not because it didn't grab your attention, but more so because of how upsetting it was for Lyra to lose her life doing what she loved, which was investigative journalism. The first few moments of the opening scenes and seeing her on scene talking passionately about what she loved to do gave me goosebumps. And then also how the documentary touches on the work that she did around the suicide rates and, you know, the troubles. And it made me very angry that we're still in this position today, having to deal with the consequences of our past. And I do think it's a very loaded documentary. Like you said, there is a lot of stuff in there that makes you really question why we're still in the position that we're in. But it celebrates her life, and she passed away way before she should have.
Yeah.
And again, doing what she loved.
Yeah,
but
it goes without saying. I mean, we haven't mentioned, I mean, also it champions her work in the LGBTQ plus community as well. And the one thing I do want, I said I was going to suggest some recommended reading or some recommended viewing. There is a short film made by a friend of the show, Brian Mulholland, who runs the Film Devour Short Film Festival, who made a short film around her letter to her 14-year-old self. It's on YouTube, it's freely available, watch it. It's a very powerful piece of short film making.
It's going to get better. You're going to join a scheme that trains people your age to be journalists. I know the careers teacher suggested it and you said no because it sounded boring and all you wanted to do was write. But go with it. For the first time in your life, you will feel like you're good at something. You'll have found your calling.
I also want to mention a few other documentaries as well. A Mother Brings Her Son to Be Shot, which is set within Derry, Londonderry. Again, a very powerful piece of documentary filmmaking that, again, what makes it much more interesting is the fact that not exploring our past, but exploring where we are right now. And if you watch the Lyra documentary, I would recommend you seek that out. And early this year, we touched on the documentary Young Plato, which is another fantastic piece of filmmaking. I believe it was on BBC as well, earlier this year as well. It's well worth a watch, of looking at Northern Ireland, where we are currently as we approach the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement in our supposed peace process. Let's not let me get started on the folks in the Hill. We'll leave that to the likes of Slugger O'Toole. I think collectively, we can all agree that this is a documentary that is a difficult watch, but it is a documentary that is worth sitting down and seeking out if you get the chance. And with that, we shall move on to something completely different with our pick of the streams.
What brings you to town?
Hey, we making some money.
Making that money.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, damn cute. From here on out, watch every move this bitch make.
This is messy. You are messy. Your brain is broke.
you came here for, Zola?
Do it look like I came for this?
All this money you made. I'm so proud of you. That's my piece.
I came to dance.
No, we're done with that.
So that's a look at Gianzico Bravo's Zola. It's available now on Now TV. I thought we would watch this film this week because of Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter. And the film we're going to discuss now is based on a 148 tweet thread based on the experiences of a stripper in Florida. Claire, I'll come to you first. I mean, were you aware of this story? I was vaguely aware of this story at around the time and listened to, and reading about it on Twitter. But were you aware of it before you sat down to watch it?
I actually wasn't. I don't know what I was doing in 2015, but I was not on Twitter reading that thread, unfortunately. But saying that, I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was fantastic. I'm not sure how much of it is true. I don't know how much of it is, fantasized from the thread. I'm going to go home and look through the thread. I probably should have done that before tonight. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. The style of the film was class. It felt really, was it Tarantino-esque in a way? Or is that completely wrong? But it's kind of like 70s style. The cinematography of it, all the shots, they were so cool. And they did it very differently to what I expected it to be like. Whenever you first said Zola, and I looked it up and it said that it was a film about prostitutes, I did not expect that sort of style of film. And the characters as well, they were so flawed and so complex, but they were hilarious as well.
It's an absolute blast of a film, I have to say. Part of me expected a biopic about Gianfranco Zola from Chelsea fame. That's not what I got when I sat down to watch this. I love the energy. I mean, it's a really punchy, it's clocking in under 90 minutes, so it's a really punchy film you can sit down and watch. We live in a world now where films can go into the 3-hour mark, and when you sit down to watch something that's that short a run time, it's always a pleasure, particularly for my bladder as I hit 40 this year. I love, like you've mentioned, Claire, I love the style, I love the performances. It's that film, it's quite Sean Baker-esque, kind of The Florida Project or Spring Breakers, which was out a couple of years ago as well. I read, I think James Franco was originally attached to direct this, but then stepped away. There is allegations about him and some of the behaviours he's gotten up to in the past few years. He stepped away, and I think the director has made something that deals with some seedy material, embraces it, steps into it, and delivers something that is not just stylish and punchy, but I find it really funny. But that says maybe more about me than anything else. Gerard, what about you?
I found it difficult to watch. I didn't find any hook in it whatsoever. I really wanted to enjoy it. And don't get me wrong, as somebody who loves photography, there were some compositions during that movie that I fell in love with. You have the symmetry between, Zola and Stefani when they're in the hotel room, and you've got the divider in the middle, or whenever they're looking down when they reach the hotel lobby, and you've got the spiral staircase and the funky coloured floor. In a way, it kind of reminded me of Wes Anderson sort of style compositions. But for the most part, I just found that it was relying too much on the ending of the story. There wasn't quite enough in the beginning or the middle for me, and I did find it difficult. I did get 1 or 2 laughs out of it, but for the most part, I was in the back of my head, I was thinking, I'm waiting for the ending, I'm waiting for everything to unravel, I'm waiting for things to become more chaotic than what they are. Maybe that was because I was aware of the Twitter thread back in 2015, and I sort of seen it unfold, but for me, I did find it difficult.
I think it just says more, Gerard, about what you get up to. If this is the type of things that don't shock you, let's not pull on that thread. The other thing I want to say as well, I want to draw particular praise to, I may get her name wrong, I apologise, Riley Keough, who's one of the actors here. I absolutely love her. I mean, she's been in a couple of films. I love The Lodge, which was out a couple of years ago, that just seems to have criminally went underneath the radar. We had hoped to screen it at our festival a couple of years ago, then COVID hit. I think she's absolutely fab in her supporting role here. And coming back to me, Claire, you weren't aware of the Twitter thread. I mean, you constantly get little tweet sounds throughout the film, and that is, anytime that's popping up, it's because it's a direct reference to a tweet or to a line from a tweet. I mean, you've clearly, we've given you homework. We're the type of film review show that gives people homework after coming on to the show. We usually do this when we have you on. So you've said you're now encouraged now to kind of actively seek out and find out more about this story.
Yeah, I would like to see how much of it is exaggerated and how much of it like actually happened as well. What I also loved was the contrast between Zola and Stefani's accounts of what actually happened. Like, they can be further apart from each other, and I found that really entertaining as well. I just really enjoyed the film, and like you said, it was only an hour and 30 minutes, and all of the best films are, like Shrek is 1 hour 30 minutes, and it's also incredible too.
Okay, Shrek, Zola. Interesting companion piece we go with there. Look, not everybody can always be on board. It makes the movie of the week an interesting discussion at the end of the show. And with that, let's move on and get to some physical media as we pick our DVD of the week.
I need y'all to tell me, what did you see in that cloud?
Well, it's not what you think. They took him. They took him all.
I gotta get out this house. I'm trying to save you. My brother is out there.
I don't think they took you. If you don't look at it.
Look, don't look, don't look.
This dream you're chasing, where you end up at the top of the mountain. It's the one you never wake up from.
You'll be getting a call from my supervisor asking how my service was.
5 stars, Angel, 5 stars.
So that's a look at Jordan Peele's Nope. It's available now on DVD and Blu-ray, and of course various VOD platforms. Gerard, I'm going to come to you first. Do you want to set up a bit of the plot for Nope for our viewers? We have strange things afoot at a farm.
It's very science-esque from the get-go. We're not quite sure what's happening. All these sort of metal coins, keys, starts to fall out of the sky within like the first 5 minutes of it. We're not too sure what's going on. And then as things go afoot, we start to discover that there's something in the sky. I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to give spoilers, but I thought that for me, for the first hour, maybe hour and a half, I really enjoyed it. But then I felt the ending sort of fell away a bit for me. I felt like there was a bit of a creative block, or maybe a creative vision. For me, it just didn't sit well with the ending.
Okay. Is this the first time you watch it? Did you see this in cinema or just watch it specifically for the show?
This is the first time that I've watched it.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that, so I saw this at the cinema a couple of months ago, and there and then in the moment, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an interesting film. I love Jordan Peele as a filmmaker, and it was a director who you could see had been influenced by Spielberg, by John Carpenter, but wasn't just absorbing all those influences and just regurgitating them, was putting his spin and that style and that kind of approach that we expect from Jordan Peele. We got that from this film. The more distance I take from that viewing in the cinema, the more I feel that the film itself is a bit underwhelming. Now, maybe that's a compliment to the film, because if you have problems and they don't bug you there and then, that's a mark that you're caught up in everything on screen. But having watched it a second time specifically for the show, I think it is a little bit flawed. I think it insists, there's this idea of our fascination with filming things, and that everything has to be seen on screen. We have to capture things, as you've alluded to, Gerard. There is something in the sky, and our two farmhands, Kiki Palmer and Daniel Kaluuya, they want to capture on screen so that they can make money from that. And that point is then readdressed with a sub-story about Geordie the chimpanzee, which is probably for me the most unsettling moment within the film. But as I say, in a typical rambly Jim McLean way, the more distance and the second time I view it, I find it's not as satisfying a cinematic experience as Get Out or Us. But I still think there's merit there. I love horror. I love the horror genre and what it can do. It comes back to that idea, do you necessarily have to be scared for a horror film to work? I would always argue it needs to get underneath your skin and stay there. Aspects of Nope did. I felt it worked at the time, but now I think it is probably a little bit underwhelming. Claire, what about you?
I really like Jordan Peele as a director. I think his films like Get Out and Us were incredible, like such good cinematic experiences, and I saw them both in the cinema and just was completely wowed by them. So I anticipated like something on that level whenever I watched this film, and I was really disappointed. I don't know if I just didn't get it, but like Gerard said, it just felt like Signs, only I definitely like Signs way more than this film.
Okay, I don't think that's going to go on the movie poster. I don't think Claire McCullough, I definitely think Signs is better, is going to be up there in front and centre of the poster. Like you, I mean, I did see a lot of Signs when I watched this, and I was intrigued that at the time it was out in cinemas, people were doing the comparisons with Spielberg's Duel and Close Encounters, and nobody mentioned Mel Gibson's film as a comparative piece. I think it's right that we've all referenced that film. I think that feature is much clearer in what it wants to do, and I think it's the fact that with Peele, he adds on this subplot around Geordie the chimpanzee, and this idea that mankind, we can control things, and that's without going into spoilers, that is a big plot and a big aspect of the narrative within this film, and our idea that we think that we as humans have a right to control over nature, and we can control things and rationalize things. And that's not, I just think that doesn't work. And I'm going to come back to you, Gerard. The ending is a little bit underwhelming, but I think it's probably purposely underwhelming because Jordan Peele had to be convinced to change the plot. And again, we can't spoiler that. It's a bit like the original ending of Get Out, which is a very underwhelming cinematic experience. He was convinced to change that to what we finally got on screen. He changed the ending for this film as well. We can talk about it off air, but I think the original idea would have been much darker and probably in a weird twisted way, says more about me viewers, would be much more satisfying and true to the idea that he created. But you find the ending, you find the ending underwhelming.
Yeah, I wanted more of the beginning of that creepy nature. Do you know, there's a certain scene where we've got the main character and he's out attending to his horse sheds at night, and he starts to see figures. And that really gripped me at that point. I was like, oh, we're going somewhere with this. But then I think from that part onwards, it kind of, for me, it sort of fell off and became a lot less horror, a lot less thriller, and more mystery. You know, we've got that part with Stephen Ewan's character, and he's deciding to do a live show now, and things go afoot there. And I thought, yeah, you know, that was great. But again, I just felt like some of the set pieces were far and few between. And you know, sometimes that works well in horror. Other times, I think sometimes you have to set a good pace and slowly build up until you get to, you know, a good relief.
And Claire, before we move on to our movie of the week, you particularly, of the three of us, you mentioned Signs. So just to put you on the spot, what was it that worked so well for you with Signs that you didn't find worked here?
It didn't last as long.
Short and to the point, there we go. So yeah, we'll probably put that on the movie poster for Nope as well. It's not as long, it's too long compared to Signs. Right, short and sweet, let's move on and wrap up this week's show with our movie of the week. So guys, movie of the week. I get a sense this might be a bit obvious this week. I think with Lyra, I think it's an outstanding documentary. So let's just say that's a given. That's our movie of the week. Let's go, for the first time in the history of this show, our second place award. So if you had to go, but again, I get a sense, I know where we're going to go. So we know that Lyra's our number one. We know that's our movie of the week. But Gerard, I'm going to come to you. Of our other two choices, what would you recommend between Zola and Nope?
I'm going to place Nope above Zola. I just felt that there was, although I said at the beginning there wasn't enough hooks throughout Nope, it definitely grabbed my attention a lot quicker than what Zola did, and I did find myself reaching for my phone during Zola. So for me, yeah, definitely Nope number 2 and Zola number 3 as I found myself reaching for my phone.
Well, maybe you find yourself looking for Twitter, and maybe the film has worked on that level. Now, Claire, we're going to come to you because we've introduced this for the first time in the history of the show specifically for you, because you're a massive fan of Zola, you're a massive fan of Lyra, as we all were. So that means we've given it as for granted that Lyra is our number one film between Zola and Nope. We know what way you're going to go, but what's your second place movie of the week and why?
Well, I would just like to disagree with everything that Gerard said. And I would like to put Zola as my second movie of the week, because I thought it gripped me and entertained me from the first 30 seconds, even from the trailer. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I didn't even look at my phone once, but within about 2 minutes of Nope, I was scrolling. So
okay, well, look, we're going to have to leave it there. For me, I mean, I have to agree with you, Claire. I mean, I absolutely love Zola. It had been built up to me by a friend of the show, James Oliver, who absolutely adored it and watched it and wasn't disappointed. And I say that as someone who enjoyed Nope, didn't love it. I enjoyed it, but I think Zola for me is just something to sit down and get my head showered, and everything that's going on in the world right now, it did exactly what I needed it to do. And being very honest, after watching a film like Lyra, I just found Zola just a breath of fresh air and something to get my head showered completely. So that's why it's my second place, specifically, Claire, for you, just so we can have Zola as our second place movie of the week. So there you go. Seek out Lyra and Zola if you can get it on VOD platforms. So that's all we've time for. So all that's left for me to do now is thank my two guests. So thank you very much, Gerard.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for watching this week. We'll be back next week with another show, but for now, until then, goodbye.